welcome back to True Crime Wednesdays at WSU. We're here. I'm Ryan Hanson.
I'm Hannah Dewey.
Claudia Cook.
I'm Skylar Woehrle.
And today we're going to be talking about, you guessed it, true crime. We decided to talk about true crime today because we're very curious about our particular question for today, which is, why do people romanticize serial killers?
Yeah, we've seen a big upsurge of this, especially with the recent documentary Conversations with a Killer, the Ted Bundy tapes. And we've seen this throughout history with multiple serial killers such as Ted Bundy, the Columbine killers, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, Nicholas Cruz even.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of research behind the study of why serial killers are, being romanticized. And while I was interviewing my dad, Jason Dewey, he is a police officer back home where I live. And when I was interviewing him, he kept mentioning how the professionals are just saying, the reason why they have turned into, killers in the first place is because something has just been, missing from their life. Normally, people like Ted Bundy, they would go after people like his mom because he didn't have a mom figure in his life. And research like that is showing that they just going after people that they're missing in life.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We also interviewed multiple of our friends and students here at WSU to kind of gauge what our peers thought of the romanticization of serial killers. One of the students said that I think shows in media about real serial killers can definitely create a disassociation between what these people actually did and how someone may interpret what they did. Seeing how something as serious as murder has been trivialized in the modern age makes these romanticization even more unsettling. Going off of this, I think a big factor in people romanticizing these killers are the portrayal of them in recent movies and media and social media. I think, for example, in Ted Bundy, Zac Efron was the main character in playing this role, which attracted a lot of viewers because of his status and his physical appearance, which goes into more depth about how people kind of can disassociate the killer's actual committed actions and their charisma and who they are as being portrayed in the media. It kind of creates, like I said, a dissociation between their actual crimes and.
Yeah, when my dad, when I asked him the same question, he decided to mention that it can be compared to people being fascinated by aliens and Bigfoot, which I found super interesting because when people are being intrigued into these items like Bigfoot, they think of it as the thing that doesn't actually exist but need to be found, and it's kind of like copycats because there's 2% chance of serial killers being a copycat and that taking place. And so when I mentioned that to him, he was just well, there's not much evidence to show that that can really happen, and the dissociation of people's values should not occur because they should really be focused on who they are during that time. And he doesn't think that there's a big chance of a rehash of killers to take place again. And the new generation should just think of this as entertainment and just a fascination type of system.
Yeah, thanks for that, Hannah. When I interviewed my friends, they sort of just choked it up to either one, the idea that there's crazy people in this world and they like crazy things, and also maybe that some people who romanticize serial killers kind of like the fame and notoriety that comes with it. But something surprising to me, at least, when looking into our research, was that according to Psychology Today, there's an actual syndrome for people who specifically have a sexual interest or attraction in those who commit crimes, and that's called hybristophilia. But what's unique about this is that it requires an actual sexual arousal by the act of others committing crimes. And so this is different from the people who just send love letters to serial killers who are on trial or showing up to their court dates, though some of those people may have this condition. And we see this a lot more commonly in women, and the reason for that is accounted for numerous factors, including that the female inmate population is much smaller. There's also less women who commit such heinous crimes like murder. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, 85% of males are murderers versus only 8% of females. There's another, according to Psychology Today, there's both passive and aggressive people who have hybristophilia, and passive people are kind of into the idea of them being special, the idea that they wouldn't harm them, and that they think they can save them. And people who have aggressive hybristophilia may even aid in the acts of the criminals.
And to add on to that point, there's a quote from Dr. Ramslad from ABC News, where he had said that the serial killers didn't have to be physically attractive to attract admirers. So although a lot of serial killers are debatably attractive to some people, they don't necessarily have to be. There's a lot of stereotypes about their like school shooters' physical appearances, how they have like, you know, the quiet kid in the back of the class with dark clothing and doesn't really talk to people, that kind of stereotype. And to go along with stereotypes, there's also the commonly known attraction to like the bad boy kind of figure, or like, you know, the toxic masculine man, or you know, that kind of frame of attraction for some people. And this is just kind of more of an extreme case of, you know, being attracted to bad boys.
Exactly, and I think another thing that people often miss about this, which allows some people to form a little bit of empathy, is that most of these women have suffered abuse, whether that have been through childhood or previous relationships. But we see in almost all people who have hybristophilia that they have suffered abuse at some point in their lives.
Yeah, profilers also date back to that too. Like John Douglas, he was a very important FBI profiler back in the day, and he also kind of correlates that back to how they profiled their serial killers and how they, you know, figured out who they were in their overall running.
Yeah, what I also thought was kind of interesting was in the Ted Bundy tapes, there's a direct quote from Bundy that says, he says, "Murderers do not come out in the dark with long teeth and saliva dripping off their chin. We want to be able to say we can identify these dangerous people. You can't identify them. People don't realize that there are potential killers among them." So kind of going off of this, like, you know, you don't have to, like, serial killers don't always look the part that people imagine them to be. You know, serial killers are just, like, such an unfathomable, like, kind of thing to grasp your head around, because it is so out of the norm for people to kill other people. So I think people associate that with, you know, like, dark and mysterious and kind of just, like, horrendous kind of features and figures. But, you know, that hasn't really necessarily been the case, especially with, like, Ted Bundy. Like, girls would send him love letters, like we previously mentioned, and even some young woman could be quoted, like, they just say, "He just doesn't look like the type to kill somebody."
Well, it looks like we're running out of time here, so to conclude all of our points to answer the question, why do people romanticize serial killers? We could say that there's a large scale that ranges from people making jokes about liking serial killers to bad boy tropes gone all the way to the extreme, and all the way up the ladder to hybristophilia, which is a medical condition that causes people to romanticize serial killers. Well, that's all our time for today. Thank you for listening.